Hello, listeners. I'm Cece Ciccone,
And I'm Kelsey Bowman.
and this is Go Big or Go Decom. And Kelsey, what did we watch this week?
Full Court Miracle.
Which I have to say was actually kind of hard to find on Disney Plus. I
It,
tried to find it several different ways, and for being one of the
yeah,
only Hanukkah movies, you'd think that they would
yeah. One
put it
of,
a little bit more, front and center. But
I
that's okay.
I was trying to think if there was any other children's media that had a large Hanukkah story. I know Rugrats did, because
Yeah, well,
like
there were
growing up,
episodes.
right, I was like, oh yes, Hanukkah, like, my friend Tommy Pickles is Jewish, so I understand.
I love it.
But
Yeah,
there
well,
there weren't a lot.
Even
Mm-hmm.
Stevens, they were Jewish because I remember there was a whole plot of uh well, what was the boy's name? I can't even Shia LaBeouf. What was his name in Even Stevens? I can't remember at all.
Oh no, I don't remember. She was Ren. Their older brother was Donnie.
And then what was he? Anyway, his character every year found his presents for Hanukkah ahead of time.
Oh, I remember
And that
that
was like a
plot
whole
now.
plot line. But yeah, so we watched Full Court Miracle, a movie oddly imbued with religious significance, and I think we will talk about that a little bit as we get started.
It
Do
was
you,
very religious.
Yeah, and it was interesting for the listeners. It's really it's based in the story of Hanukkah, which if you don't know, it's in the book of Maccabees. The Maccabees basically um, King Antiochus or Antiochus, him and his army came through and totally destroyed the temple, and so they needed to rededicate the temple to God, and in that process, they needed to have a lantern lit for the entire time of rededicating the temple.
Hmm.
It seemed that they only had enough oil for one night. They sent someone to go get more, and it took him eight days to get back. So the miracle of the oil and lasting those 8 days, that's basically the story of Hanukkah, and this idea that the Maccabees, uh, Judas Maccabee or Judah Maccabee and his brothers really fought for the purity of the Jewish people, and that's kind of what they're known for throughout Jewish history. About 150, 160 years before Jesus, that's what happened. But anyway, that is basically this story carries us through the entire movie. And
Hmm.
I find it very interesting because I was trying to rack my brain of whether or not there's any other decom or really, I mean, Disney movie in general that has any other religious message or religious story, religious practice even at
Hmm.
its core, not just Christianity, but Islam. I can't think of anything.
No, I mean, even the other Christmas movies we watch, they're very secular Christmas movies, as
Mm-hmm.
are most Christmas movies are very secular Christmas movies. So it was, I thought it was so fun though. They go to a Jewish school. It was really interesting. I thought it was well done. I was interested in I know Alex Lutz, who played Alex in the our main character. He is Jewish in real
Oh,
life. But I didn't know. I was trying to find out if other actors were, but it didn't let me know. But I mean, they wear
yeah,
yarmulkes the whole time.
they
Almost all
do.
of our characters are male, so they
Yeah.
wear yarmulkes the whole time. They go to a Jewish school. There's like Hebrew writing on the board at school, so the
Yeah.
expectation is that they can read and write Hebrew as well.
Yeah. Our main
So,
character goes to a Hebrew school
mhm.
um, at its core.
Phil,
So, but before we get into the plot, is there any background information that we should know?
no, you covered it with our background on Hanukkah. Thank you.
Okay, nice. So let's get started. We're in Philadelphia. Go
We are. We're in
76ers, go
Philadelphia.
Birds. No, no
The
go Birds.
Philadelphia Eagles. I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
Pittsburgh is the Steelers. Yeah,
yeah, they are. It's
okay.
Philadelphia Eagles. And we open up and this basketball team is not doing so good.
Yeah, he's discussing his terrible basketball team with his friend Julie. And
Who's played by Cassie Steele. Did you recognize her from anything?
no.
Degrassi. I don't know if you ever watched
Oh,
that.
I wasn't like a huge Degrassi person, but
Yeah,
I mean, I've
yeah.
seen some Degrassi. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's discussing this. He's on his way to school. I guess he goes to an all boys school, an
Mhm.
all boys Hebrew school. So they're discussing how terrible his basketball team is. Essentially, he goes into school, he, meets up with his friends. They have the Jewish history class that the rabbi is teaching that introduces us to the story of Hanukkah. He has a like dream sequence where like he's supposed to be Judah Maccabee, and then he's like fighting the
Yeah.
Romans,
It was
but it's
very
basketball.
odd. Very odd.
And it was just funny because it was like a filter they put on it. Like it wasn't necessarily, I mean, it was like 2003. They probably actually shot this on film. So they just
Yeah.
sort of like made it grainier there weren't any
Yeah,
actual
like they
special
were in the
effects.
desert and he was
Right.
defending the people. It's really interesting because I think what most people know about the story of Hanukkah is the miracle of the oil and that it lasts 8 days because the menorah is, what we think
Right.
of. So it was really interesting that they had this whole backstory, that they went much deeper
Hmm.
um into it, and in a way that doesn't really make sense for the story at all. Like I don't know. Just like the idea of this kid being like leading a revolt again. Like
Through basketball.
that's just not what happened
Right,
with
exactly.
the basketball team. But anyway,
And they
so
have a basketball game and they're terrible. They're
yeah.
awful. There's no mercy rule. I grew up playing softball, and softball, because you have innings, if you don't have a mercy rule, you might just never stop. You may just never end a game.
Yeah.
So I guess there's
Oh
no.
wow. That's rough. Yeah, well, when I played lacrosse in high school, if a team got up by 10, they didn't stop the clock anymore because they would normally stop the clock for penalties. And then yeah, if a team got up, but yeah, that's not the case here. Rabbi is the coach, and Alex says, are you going to help us? Like, are you going to coach? And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And he turns around and leads
It's
a
not the rabbi. It's
cheer.
Mr. Simowitz.
Oh, Mr. Simowitz. I'm sorry.
Yes, he does not know how to play basketball.
He does not know how to play basketball, so he just leads everyone in a cheer, which is hilarious.
That would
Um,
be me coaching a basketball game. Yeah, they're
yeah,
down by like 20 points
it's
or
pretty
something.
significant.
They lose
Yes.
hardcore.
So they lose by a lot, and then we kind of can fast forward a little bit to they're playing basketball in a park, and we get our savior,
Our
so to
savior Lamont
speak,
Carr.
Lamont Carr, who is a basketball player. And Alex just kind of walks up to him. Lamont is shooting his free
Yeah,
throws.
Alex sees a grown adult, humongous man, basketball player, so very tall,
Yeah.
athletic man. And Alex says, "That's my coach," and like
And he
dims
goes
and just
over
walks over.
and he's like,
Yes,
I'm going to rebound for you. And it's very clear that Lamont Carr does not want him
like
to
has
be
no
there.
interest in. I mean, it's if I was doing anything in public and a 15-year-old came up to me and was like, "You're my coach now. I'm gonna tell me your name. I'll play a game against you for this." I'd be like,
Yeah. But
"Excuse
he
me."
promises to pay him.
He does, and
And
that's what wins him over. He wins him over with $40.
yeah, we learn that yeah, he's a little bit down on his luck, so $40 is a big deal. We find out later that he actually came to Philadelphia in hopes of playing for the 76ers.
And
So
Lamont Carr was a real person. This is vaguely based on a real story.
yeah, which
And
is kind of
Lamont
cool.
Carr did bring a Jewish high school team to win the
Yeah.
championship or whatever they were playing in. They keep saying tourney. There is a tournament in a couple weeks that they're preparing for that they don't want to lose, and they keep calling it a tourney. And it felt very. Did you watch Mary Kate and Ashley movies?
No,
Have I
I did
asked you this
not.
before? There was one Holiday in the Sun. Megan Fox is in that one, and they keep saying it takes place in the Bahamas, and the characters keep saying vacay. They're like, "Are you on vacay with the
Okay.
fam?" That's what they keep saying to each other.
I
And
saw. So I don't know. Are you on TikTok very much?
no, I'm not on TikTok.
It's an awful habit. I don't particularly like it, but it's how I spend my time and I turn my brain off and there we are. But on TikTok, there's this whole trend of how like I don't know who comes I guess Gen Alpha is what comes after Gen Z. And this fact that like Gen Alpha has this like whole language that makes no sense. Like they have like tons of terminology, and like there's all these videos of like Zoomers or like millennials being like, okay, so I can't say this. Like I can't say slay. Like no one says slay anymore. Like that's the whole thing. And like
No one
the
says slay anymore.
not Gen Alpha. And
Wow.
and the kids will be like, yeah. And it's like I would never and then the person would be like, so what would you say if like someone's doing like something well? And the kids will be like, well, if like she has a gyat and I really like it, I would say like go off or like whatever. And then the person's like, well, what's a gyat? It's like just like this forever circle of like slang. So
Yes.
anyway, we're old. In
Yeah, that
conclusion.
was the point of the story. So that he wants Lamont to coach him. He pays him $40 to coach them for one afternoon. And well, he goes home, he Googles, he finds him online, finds his old basketball roster, looks up all his stats. He was previously in the NBA and some other basketball league, and then he blew his knees out, basically.
Yep. And he does have a family. He has a wife and a kid who live in Virginia. So, you know, he's yeah. So
so we need more money for Lamont to continue coaching us.
Right.
And because we're running out of money, he sets up a coffee. They're trying to sell espresso on the street corner.
That's cute.
It was cute. Although again, the kid's like, it'll put the boo in your bootay. And again, it felt like an unnecessary line.
I love it.
From an adolescent.
But we do find out as all of this is happening that Alex is obviously super devoted to basketball. He wants his team to do well. You know, I don't know if they say it explicitly, but he probably wants to be in the NBA. And his mom in particular is just not on board. And Kelsey, who is his mother?
The mom from Cadet Kelly, the same actress.
I don't think we said it, but Cadet Kelly was 2003. Full Court Miracle was also 2003. So she, 2 films, 2 DComs, 1 year.
She's just hanging around the Disney lots. Yep. She couldn't cook in this one either.
Yeah, which was funny. Oh my gosh. So
she really wants him to be a doctor and not focus on basketball, like to such an extreme.
Right, like to the point where I don't even think she wants him to play basketball at all.
Correct. Like, I mean, she doesn't go to his games, which makes me sad.
He like schedules things for him to like shadow other doctors and whatnot.
She schedules an internship for him to schedule another to shadow doctors, which is during his basketball practices.
Yeah, so very pointed.
And then gets upset when he doesn't want to go because he has basketball practice. His friend Julie ends up going because she actually wants to go.
Yeah, so we have some tension here. Yeah, so Julie shows up, and then that ends up being a big thing later because obviously this kid is really entrenched in the Jewish community between his school and his family practices and whatnot, and so they're not a big fan of him lying. You know, like just that, like you know, they hold him to a particular moral standard, right? But we could get back to the basketball story because that's really what this is about. You know, there's a lot of basketball DComs. Quite a
basketball's a really big theme, I guess, because it's such a big high school sport.
I guess so. Yeah, we have Luck of the Irish, Double Teamed. I wouldn't consider High School Musical a basketball movie, but it's there. Yeah.
I mean, where would Get Your Head in the Game be without basketball?
Gotta get you. Yeah. No, that's the choreography, and I know we're gonna watch High School Musical and it's gonna come out on New Year's Day, so mark your calendars. But the choreography
is so good.
It's next level. They didn't have to go that hard.
They're dribbling. Kenny Ortega just goes there when he doesn't have to. Awesome. Absolute icon.
Anyway, shout out to our next episode is going to be like 5 hours.
So yeah, long. We should focus on this one. I know.
So they're practicing with Lamont Carr, and you know, Alex in his head, he's like, this is the secret. Like he's going to teach. Well, the other boys on the team don't really like basketball in particular, so you know they're all just kind of there for their friend.
Yeah, Lamont makes them run 1755s, which I would die if
Die,
someone made me, I
absolutely.
would just leave.
It's so funny.
Sorry.
I like saw a video of the Eagles practicing, and they were like jumping over things, and I was like, I'm tired just watching you.
When football players run into those big fake people and then the
Yeah,
people move, I'm like, oh my gosh. And there's other people standing on the fake people. Do you know what I'm
yeah.
talking
They're
about?
so strong. They're so
They're
strong.
so
It's
strong. It's
ridiculous.
crazy.
These kids are not strong.
No, these are
So
tiny, like adolescent. I noted at one point that
prepubescent.
like right, puberty is fun because Alex's voice is like literally changing throughout. Like there's a couple scenes where it cracks. I'm like, oh, puberty
Yeah.
is so hard.
Yeah, he's
Like
supposed to
you're
be
doing
14 and
amazing.
yeah.
And he
So
definitely is.
so they're not a big fan of this coaching style because they're like, we're here to play basketball, not to run up and down the court.
Yeah. The thing is you
And
have and Alex is right. Alex is like, I love basketball and you love basketball. Can you help them to love basketball? And he
right.
does. He teaches them to shoot. He really builds their confidence. But it
Hmm.
is a good point that if you like eat, sleep, and breathe a sport, then doing the hard stuff, doing the drills, you see the point of it. But if you're just kind of
Right.
there for the vibes and then
You're
someone's
like,
making you run back and
right.
forth, it's
I just want to
awful.
make a free throw where you literally don't
Right.
move. Why are you making me run? So yeah, so there's a little bit of a growth there for Lamont Carr where he realizes he's like, wait a second, not in the NBA. These are 14-year-old kids. You know, they're not doing
Yeah.
very well. Yeah, they might be able to get a little bit better if they run, but they're gonna hate me and they're not gonna play next year. So yeah, so he gets a little bit better. But it's really just not a sustainable um kind of setup for the kids to be paying him every practice.
Right.
And I think it's about this time that we realize that we learn that Lamont is living out of his car.
Right, he is. He has a big green van that he drives around, and we see that he is indeed sleeping in it and living in it. Alex finds out when Alex follows him. Some of the other boys think that and Alex think that he is the ghost of Judah Maccabee, who was meant
Yeah.
to
So they
lead
don't think
them
he's
out of
human.
right, exactly. Who is meant to lead them out of the basketball, warfare into victory. And so he follows him to see if he sleeps. And he does sleep. It's in this van. He's experiencing homelessness. 50% of
Mhm.
Americans live paycheck to paycheck and are 2 paychecks away from homelessness. So it's not an insane thing to think, but it is.
Yeah.
I understand where Ms. Klein, because we realize we need to legitimize the situation. He becomes a coach through the school,
Right, an
essentially.
employee of the school.
Yes.
And there are some concerns that he's not safe, which I think is very, very interesting because in the movie it's, kind of not framed as a villain necessarily trying to, keep him from being the coach, but definitely an obstacle that these people don't think
Mm-hmm.
that he's safe. And it's just so interesting to me. Like that is so 2003 because, now 20 years later, it's like, yeah, you found this man in a park.
Right.
We need to make sure he's safe.
Right.
So
She
yeah,
she's like, the address he gave me is fake. It doesn't exist. Miss Klein, the
yeah,
principal, is concerned because the address doesn't seem to be real. He's a random man that the kids found in a park and are asking to coach basketball,
right.
and that nobody knows. And
Hmm.
the rabbi's like, huh, that's interesting. And she's like, it's not interesting. It's unsafe, which until then I'd been like, why does she care so much? And then I was like, oh yeah, because people like hurt people.
Right.
So we have to
Right.
keep the children safe. These are like adolescent boys.
Yeah.
So they obviously
Yeah.
don't think things through.
I think it was a good little plot point there to
Hmm.
include that. Again, because we're in this time with DComs where they're, and I'm pretty sure I watched this with my mom. I like have a vague memory that I watched this with my mom. Where families watch it together,
Hmm.
and so yeah, there was that little bit for the parents of like, yeah, right, this is kind of crazy for it to happen. So Alex decides that he's going to help his coach. This kid is 14 years old and is just like so determined, and I don't know, he's got stuff together. So he connects Lamont with his dad who
Yes, his
has
dad appears to be some sort of real estate developer
Hmm.
and owns condominium buildings or something like that, and is trying to sell a condo because his dad has like paperwork that says like Schlotsky, which is his last name, like
Hmm.
developments or something like that. And asking if Lamont can live in one of the units. Lamont originally does not want to. He doesn't want to take a handout, and they're saying we're paying you to coach him,
Hmm.
etc. And so he does move into the unit.
Yeah, they kind of work out that he's gonna help get it together so that they can sell it.
Right.
While he's staying there, so it's not just a giveaway, that he's really gonna contribute. And I think it's really interesting, just yeah, the story of the background of homelessness, and this idea that, I mean, we presume that his wife and child are not homeless, living in Virginia, and he's trying to support them, and so in the process he ends up living out of his car. And I think that that is actually an extremely, extremely common story, especially
Mm-hmm.
with like immigrant families, that it's like you go where the work is and where you're specialized. And yeah, so I do appreciate that
It's
little
also
background.
an interesting juxtaposition with now so many influencers and things like that live in a van and it's just trendy and
Yeah.
cool. Like that's a whole
Well,
trend.
it's trendy and cool, and part of it is that what the people who live out of their vans say is, yeah, it's a little bit of a rebellion against the current housing situation,
Mm-hmm.
and this fact that, yeah, housing costs and are so extremely out of control, especially in cities. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna live out of my van, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time. I'm gonna make a nice van. There's a shower and a TV, and yeah, I think that we don't appreciate that as much. People don't want to be living out of their cars.
Right.
It's not ideal.
So we do bring, and then he comes over for Shabbos at the rabbi's house.
Mhm.
Alex and his family, he being Lamont, comes over for Shabbos at the rabbi's house to become more like involved in the community, meet the rabbi, meet some more people
Yeah.
before he starts coaching. It's an interesting moment. It's possibly one of the most, it shows the biggest cultural differences. There's obviously huge cultural differences between these, white Jewish people and this African
Hmm.
American. I mean, we don't know what religious he is, but
Hmm.
Jewish, being Jewish, even beyond being a
Yeah.
religion, is a culture and an
Yeah. He,
ethnicity.
he
So
does not appear to be Jewish. Yeah.
he
And
asks for a glass of milk, and then they explain being kosher. And I was like, I know we had to explain being kosher. Who is asking for a glass of milk?
I know, it was kind of weird. And it wasn't even like dessert or anything. Like, oh, this cookie would be really good with some milk.
Right. It's just
Um,
randomly like, I'd like some
yeah.
milk.
Yeah, and it is, I think it's interesting. And I think this might be why they did choose, to make it Hanukkah focused, because I think the Jewish people in general have such rich cultural heritage to be able to see it. That like there's certain things, yeah, Christians celebrate Christmas or whatever, but there's no like unified way that we celebrate it,
Hmm.
that can be shown, as much as, yeah, like Shabbos, like just every week this is what we do. There's so few examples of that just in our cultural landscape.
Oh, in Gossip Girl, Blair's mom starts
Mhm.
dating, I can't remember his name, but he's Jewish, and there's that whole, I don't remember, is it Passover where they leave a seat for Elijah? And
Yeah.
people keep showing up, and like in Gossip World, they keep like showing up to the apartment like randomly, and they're like, "Oh, can I sit here?" And he's the only Jewish person, so he's like, "That seat's for Elijah."
Yeah, we made a lot of jokes about that when I was in the convent, like if the elevator would like start to close and then it would open and no one was there, you'd be like, it's Elijah. Like, whatever it is. Yeah, no, it's fun. And yeah, I think
I do
it's
think I guess because both of us are Catholic and we're
yeah,
raised Catholic, we are also Catholicism, as far as Christianity goes, does have the most like specific rituals. You do
right.
things in this way,
But
in this
we
way.
don't do
So
them at home as much.
that's true. Like I got an Advent wreath for my son, and I was thinking like this is kind of the only thing we really do at home. I got the Advent wreath for our family. I got a
Yeah.
wooden one for my son, so it's also a toy, so that there's not like flames involved. Um, and I was thinking this
Yeah.
is kind of the only thing we do at home as a family, and so I do think those intricacies are are really beautiful.
Yeah. And I think it's really good too to show the side of Hanukkah, because I don't know, growing up, all I knew about Hanukkah was menorah, dreidel, and 8 days of gifts. And like
Right.
they really show this other like communal side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really beautiful, along with this fact, because when I think about the Jewish people, and now as an adult, I've learned a lot more. Obviously, I actually majored in religious studies when I was in college, so I got a little bit, learned a little bit. But like the Jewish people like are so entrenched with story, like
Mm-hmm.
that's just like what they are. And so I think it's really beautiful to see that played out with these kids, even though it's goofy that they think Lamont Carr, is the ghost of Judah Maccabee.
Right.
But that's how much they're living these stories, is
Mm-hmm.
that it's, and so that's also something that is like, yeah, just culturally unique. Um, and I don't know, did you do any research on like the writer or the director of,
No, I didn't.
because I
Well,
mean,
the writer was a friend of the real Lamont Carr.
okay,
He'd known him from his time at UVA. I think he went to UVA.
yeah.
Knew Lamont Carr. They stayed in touch after their college friends. And the
Hmm.
writer, knew him the whole time. He coached people and things like that. And so the writer was actually a friend of Lamont Carr,
Yeah, yeah. So that's I
who passed away in 2017.
oh
R.I.P.
yeah. All right, so everyone's kind of on board at this point,
Mhm.
and it's time for
Except
the septus
uh
mom.
except Alex's mom. Right. So then we have an issue where Alex gets a C plus on his Jewish history test.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep saying, like, you failed your test, you're failing, you can't have basketball. His mom has a meeting with the rabbi and the principal where she's like,
Like
Alex
one
clearly
test.
can't handle basketball and school because he got a
No.
C plus on one test. I was like, a C plus is passing still.
Yeah, so they're gonna let him retake it, but he's not allowed to play basketball. And interesting, Lamont is like all on board with this. He's like, yeah, you can't play. Like, this is not what's most
Yeah.
important.
Although they have a game, and I realize it's a movie, but Lamont tells him in the locker room before the game in front of everybody that he can't play because he's, quote, failing history. And again, I was like, a C plus is a passing grade. Like if you end a class with a C plus, you don't go to summer school, so you're not failing. And Lamont's wearing a really cute suit. I thought that was so cute that he really
Yeah,
dressed the
that he
part
coached
of
in a suit.
in this, yeah, of like a because the NBA coaches for basketball coach in a suit. Although I think baseball managers are adorable because it'll be like the whole team and then like a 70-year-old man in his little baseball uniform because they wear the same outfit as the
Yeah, it
team.
is weird. I don't know. Baseball pants are weird. Football pants are weird.
Football
Football
coaches
pants,
are lazy because they're all wearing sweatpants
it
out
makes
there.
sense. It makes sense. It's cold. But no, so football pants, a weird number of teams wear white football pants.
Okay.
And they're basically see-through because I mean it's spandex, so it stretches. And when you stretch
Right.
spandex, it becomes see-through. So then they awkwardly have this like extra support like right up their butt cracks. And like everyone can see it. And I'm like, why don't we just wear a different color of pants?
Right.
Like,
Can't we all wear purple or something?
black is good. Like, yeah.
Well, but they
So,
have to wear opposite colors. That's why, so that so
oh,
they
from
know
the
who's
other
on their
team. Yeah, I
team.
guess
Mhm.
so. But like the Eagles wear white pants all the time, and they can wear
Oh,
black even if they're wearing like a white top. Like that's okay. But that's all right.
yeah, just wear black pants. I agree. Yeah, white spandex is rough. As someone who like has, even with leggings, you have to like test the
Yeah.
invisibility
Right.
meter. So it's
Yeah.
white's not like I don't wear white leggings,
Yeah,
obviously,
no,
for
no one
that
does.
reason.
Yeah, so he gets to retake his test. Kind of cute. He studied while he was dribbling his basketball, and so that's what
Hmm.
he does during the test,
With
which
his
is like,
friends, all of his teammates come over and help him study, which was sweet. It showed the team,
yeah,
coming together. I liked that all his
yeah,
teammates came over to help him
yeah, it was
study for his
nice.
test. He gets a B plus I think a B plus this time. So
Yeah,
he passes, he gets to play in the tournament.
yeah, and this game, do we skip right to the final game? Are there games
No,
leading
we
up to
do
the
have
final game?
one. So they won the game that he couldn't play in, that Alex
Ah,
couldn't play it. And that
okay.
was their, I guess, penultimate game
Hmm.
because they win that and they move on to the finals without Alex. Alex also is sassy to Julie and she gets upset with him. He's like, why do you come to my games and just criticize me? And it's like, can you
She's
just be
like, I
nice
want
to
you to be
Julie?
better,
Right.
you know,
She's supportive. She comes to your games.
yeah,
Your mom doesn't. I did think it was sad that he couldn't play, but he also had to sit in the stands. Like, can't he
and
just
watch
sit on the
everybody.
sidelines
Yeah,
and not play?
it's sad. I do not think that this movie passed the Bechdel test.
It didn't because the only two women who have a conversation are Julie and his mom, but they're talking about Alex, which does not, the conversation has to not be about a man.
Yeah. So
I realize it was about boys at an all boys school and on a basketball team.
fair
So
enough. Fair enough.
I gave it a pass.
And 2003, like I don't know. I just think it's something that'll be interesting to keep track of to see whether or not
If it happens
as we
more
go on.
often.
Yep. Yeah, so we're at the last game of the tournament. It's very stormy.
And this is like 30 minutes of the 85-minute movie.
Yeah, it's like the last game is like that is yeah, like the point of
The
the whole
whole
movie.
climax and everything is happening in the last game of the tournament. It
Right
means so
now.
much to him. We're fighting I think they're called the Warriors are who they're playing. And their team is the Lions, which I thought was, I mean, just symbolically they're the Lions. They're fighting the Warriors. And of course we had been talking about the Maccabees and things like that. So I thought they picked the mascots well.
Yeah, it went around went together.
Oh, but between games, Lamont tells them at practice that he was signed to a 10-day contract with the 76ers.
Yeah, so
And
this
so
is going to be his last time.
He won't be teaching them anymore and he won't be coaching them. And they, like any 14-year-olds, are really annoyed about it.
Like, what? What do you mean? And he's like,
Why wouldn't
literally
you
the
coach
whole
us?
reason I came here.
The whole reason I came here was trying to be on the 76ers. The 76ers pay me real money that I need to support my family.
Yeah.
And I mean, he tells them they're like, what about us?
Yep.
What about everything we've been through? That's High School Musical too.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. And there is a scene in his office, I guess, afterwards where Alex comes in and Alex like, I thought you liked coaching. I saw that you were really getting into it. And he's like, I need Buddy, which again, I understand. He needs money. He wants to play in the NBA. And Alex says, your family needs you, which was a low blow.
Yeah. Like
there are so many people. I mean,
kid.
Right. Again, 14-year-old kids. And Lamont yells at him. Lamont's like, stop being selfish, Alex, which there were some low blows in this conversation.
Probably not a totally appropriate
thing to say to a 14-year-old, but also
things.
Alex was being very rude. Because like obviously my husband's in the Navy. We go long stretches of time without seeing him. And so if someone came up to him and was like, your family needs you, it would be really mean.
Would be really mean. Yeah, so finally Alex's mom is supportive and understands that like basketball is important to him.
They have a conversation where he explains how he feels and he says like it's this is really what makes me happy. And again, she's putting a lot. He can still, when do you actually graduate? You don't graduate law school if you're going to be a doctor. You, in theory,
it takes
graduate college at 22, let's say, med school at 26, if you're doing everything like on track, so to speak. And then you do, 3 or 4 years of residency. You're 29, 30 before you're actually practicing. It takes a long time. She's putting a lot of pressure on this 15-year-old.
I will say, growing up, my sister like really liked musicals and said that like her goal was to be a Broadway star. And I had a conversation, it like really low moment for me as an older sibling, where we were in the car and she was talking about like, how excited she was and like how she really thought that she would be able to do Broadway. And I was like, Sophia, like you like don't get main roles. Like you're not gonna be on Broadway. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like Sophia. And she was like, there's lots of people who don't even start until they're 16. I was like, yeah, but the people who start when they're younger, they get the parts. Like, and all this. And it closed with her saying, Cece, you have to let me dream. Which I kind of feel like is relevant here. It's like it's healthy when you're 14 years old to have these big dreams. Like,
exactly.
you have
Like,
time.
no, he's clearly such a short little basket. She even says it at one point, just like my 5', 15-year-old son wants to be in the NBA. He's obviously not going to be in the NBA, but yeah, you have to let your kids dream and do whatever they want. My son's current dream is to, we have to drop things off at like the dump sometimes because we're like doing work on our house. And there is like a bulldozer in the dump, like bulldozing the trash, and that's his dream currently, is to drive the dump bulldozer.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
Exactly. That's what he says he's like so excited to go to the dump. He loves when he sees it. He's like, that's what I want to do. And I'm like, okay, babe, whatever you want.
I love
the stinky, stinky dump. That's his goal, though. And I'm like, whatever you want, babe.
I love it.
He's just the stereotypical kid that is just obsessed with construction equipment.
Are you gonna get us back on track here?
Yes. So we're playing our final game. Lamont's not there at the beginning because he is playing a game for the 76ers. And our mom actually goes to track him down, and the game's over, and she says, I think you should come to the game. The 76ers game is over, and she says, Lamont, I think you should come. He says, I have to go to the airport.
Yeah, to pick up his family.
She says, yeah, let me bring you to the game. So, or take my car to the game or something like that. And at the game, there's huge thunderstorms. The power goes out. We start running off the backup generator, which only has a very small amount of oil in it. The Warriors, our opposing team, I
see some symbolism.
Are quite a bit ahead at this point in time. And the rabbi makes a deal with their coach, which is like, I feel like the basketball league would have rules on what happens if the power goes out, but they just make a deal that when the oil runs out and the generator turns off, whoever is up at that point in time wins.
Will win. Yeah. So the Warriors end up calling a timeout. And they
are trying to run out the clock because we know there's not much oil in it. Mr. Simowitz does some math to realize that we've got about 2 minutes and 45 seconds left of oil. So the Warriors are calling timeouts to play out the game. They're playing smarter, not harder. It's a strategy. Our characters are very upset about it, but
so we get to the point, there's, I don't know, maybe a little under 2 minutes left, or a little under 2 minutes left of oil, I should say. It's a very close game at this point. There's 5 minutes left on the game clock. And the Lions, the Jewish team, they're like, it's not going to happen. Like, we're not going to be able to win. And that's when Lamont Carr comes in. And he's like, I don't know.
He says, remember when the oil was only supposed to burn for 1 day and it burned for 8 days? We should just keep playing. And they do, and they come back. And it'll like cut to the generator and the oil going up and down, and there's lightning and like bulbs are bursting for seemingly no reason in the room.
It's very dramatic.
I did think it was cute at the beginning of the game. They did like a walkout dance to this like rap version of Dreidel, the Dreidel song.
That.
They're like dancing, and it's nothing like Get Your Head in the Game, because Get Your Head in the Game, those are actual like professional dancers, and these are clearly just 15-year-old actors that they were like slide to the left, slide to the right. And then the rap's like Dreidel, 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 Dreidel. It was really
saying.
So it just showed that they really came together as a team, even without Lamont as their coach, and they really believed in themselves. And so they're coming back, they're playing, and it ends with, as the buzzer, we're running out of oil, it's flashing back and forth, bulbs are bursting. As the game's ending, Alex passes to another teammate who shoots on the buzzer, scores, and we win.
This was also kind of big. Shows his character arc. That he no longer needs to be the star player. He has found that it's important to have a team around him, and whatnot.
And then at the end of it, Lamont's family shows up. They decide to stay and coach there. And which I was thinking, I don't know of any high schools that had just a full-time coach who didn't also
Not
teach.
full-time. No.
Right.
Yeah. Interestingly, my high school was hiring a lacrosse coach earlier this year, which was always my dream. I always wanted to go back and coach lacrosse in my high school. And they like required a college degree, like
Just to coach
coach
lacrosse.
lacrosse for, a part-time job for 3 months. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, the things that require a college degree now. I mean, like when I first graduated college, I worked what was basically like a secretary job for 5 or 6 months. It was called a program assistant, but it was basically a secretary, and it required a college degree. And I just remember working at it and being like, you don't need a college degree to do this job. And it didn't pay very well at all. I made like $16 an hour. And I was like, cool, I paid more than this for college a year.
Yeah, it's I remember I had some work that I did with a social worker who worked for the government, and so because she was a government employee, her salary was freely available online. Had a master's degree and was making like under $40,000 a year.
Yeah,
that's what social workers make. And,
yeah, I was
horrific.
working at it. I was working at a nonprofit there, and so like no one made good money at all. And then they kept being like, "Why is our turnover so terrible?" And it's like, because no one's making money.
Are you really asking that question?
Right. Like, is this rhetorical? Or and then it ends with them lighting Alex and his mother and father lighting the menorah for the last day of Hanukkah to really bring it back to, like we said, the Jewish religion and the rituals of Hanukkah. The timing's a little confusing. I guess it starts right before Hanukkah and it ends one of the last days of Hanukkah,
which is only like 8 days.
It's supposed to be
seems like a lot
weeks.
longer than that. Oh,
they
really?
said the tourney is in 2 weeks, is what they say
2
at one point in
weeks.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks, Lamont took them from terrible basketball players to tourney-winning basketball players.
Nice.
Also, one of Alex's Hanukkah presents was an encyclopedia CD, which I thought was so fun.
It is fun. Yeah, and there's a scene towards the end where he's playing basketball with his mom, and Lamont's family's there, and Julie's there, and so it's just kind of a little fun.
Yeah, it was cute.
We had like a basketball net growing up, and like I never really seriously played basketball because I'm short. And like that's what we would do. Like my dad and I just on a summer afternoon, you just shoot around basketball, and it's like super pure and just delightful. So
it's true. Yeah, we had a basketball hoop, even though my brother played some basketball, but we were much more into baseball and softball. But we would also like play wiffle ball all the time, or just play catch. So that was fun to see them doing that, like in the
they're like playing sports for fun. Yeah. All right, so that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Yep, there's no fun fashion to mention. They're in uniforms a lot, and then just
nothing
like
in particular. Yeah, just the yarmulkes.
Boy clothes. Yeah, they wear their yarmulkes the whole time. I mean, the mom is mostly in a white coat to show us she's a doctor, and Julie wears a uniform skirt but sweatpants under it in every scene.
Yeah,
was that like the hip thing to do, wear sweatpants?
It was. I mean, skirt? Where I guess it didn't get cold enough in New Orleans, but yeah, because like to and from school, it would be cold, so you would wear sweatpants under your skirt.
I was gonna say, were you allowed to wear sweatpants under your skirt?
Not like during the day, but you would just wear it, and then like because I don't know, like who likes wearing tights, so like people would still just wear like I don't know, like knee highs, and just to and from school you'd wear sweatpants.
Yeah, we had to wear tights. We had like crew, we had uniform socks. We all had to wear these crew uniform socks all the time. And so then we could wear tights with them. But we were technically, even if we were not on school property, we're supposed to be in the school uniform.
Oh, that was not.
So even if you weren't on school property, if you were in like your uniform was supposed to be like correct and tidy.
Nope, we had no discipline.
It wasn't. We had a disciplinarian. Did you not have a disciplinarian?
No.
We had a woman whose job was to be.
That was her whole job.
That was her job title.
Did everyone hate her?
Yeah, she was the worst.
No, we did.
I'm not going to say her name.
I got in trouble once. Like around lunchtime, I was in my locker and I was looking at my phone. And I think kids are allowed to have phones with them now. But back then we were not.
We were not.
So I was like texting in my locker, and a teacher took it, And like the whole thing was that the teacher would take it, give it to the vice principal, and then at the end of the day you would go to her, get your phone back, and then get your detention slip. And so I went up and I was like, and she's like, I have your phone. And I said, yes, I was checking the time. And she
You
said,
lied.
you were checking the time. And I said, yes, I was checking the time. And she said, well, I see that you do not wear a wristwatch. And I was like, wow, she like checked my wrist. She was like, so I will give this back to you. Yeah, I got it.
Ours were supposed to be off and in our locker.
Yeah, ours were too.
Okay. Yeah, ours was supposed to be off. The only detention I ever got in high school was for having my cell phone. I was like texting my mom. I don't know why.
Well, and then there was a whole thing where like girls would put their phones in their locker but didn't lock their locker. And so then we had a cell phone thief that stole a couple of girls' cell phones. And we like this like sounds super dramatic. I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago about this whole situation. So like the third girl's phone got stolen. And then they like come over the announcement and they're like, we are on lockdown. And like administrators are going to come to every single classroom and like check your backpacks. And so then like everyone had their phones on them. So like, this is my phone. They're like,
oh my gosh.
And so yeah, it was just this whole drama. Yeah, we never found out who stole the phones. They never got them back. It was just like,
wow.
Yeah, big mystery, unsolved mystery. So yeah, so nothing really for passion for fashion. I gotta be honest, I don't, this wasn't super nostalgic, even though it was 2003.
I barely remembered this. Like I said, I didn't have any memory going into it. There's one scene where they're like on the bikes and then like seeing Lamont in the van. I was like, okay, I've definitely seen this before. I guess I'd be interested in seeing how many reruns it had. I wonder if I'm sure I could find
I've seen it several times. I've seen it several times. I don't know that I have watched it on Disney Plus before, but I might have. Yeah, no, I definitely, yeah, the whole story I knew, but it's weird because like there's not much about this movie that's 2003.
It's true.
Because like you said with the fashion,
because it
not
is
really
so
like,
ingrained
no
in
technology
Judaism.
really. Yeah.
Just the one computer scene where he's Googling Lamont,
right,
or he's looking him up in the old UVA rosters. It is so ingrained in Judaism, which religion, especially one that old, does seem fairly timeless. These customs have been going on for so long.
Very true. All right, so Kelsey, how many Disney Wanda IDs?
I would give this, I'm Kelsey Woolman and you're watching the Disney Channel. I would give this, I think 7.5. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I liked, obviously, that the parents were involved. It felt more like a whole family movie, like I've said several times. That's something I look for. And I really thought it was so different from everything else because of how they kept bringing it back to the Jewish history.
Yeah, it was very different. Yeah. Although I have to say, and maybe it's just because of the basketball component, I do see a lot of overlap with The Luck of the Irish. Because again, that's a very cultural, movie where I don't know, that they go a little bit deeper into the Irish culture than, we just normally think of with St. Patrick's Day.
It's true.
So anyway, that's just something.
I guess they could have gone deeper into the cultural differences between Lamont and the rest of them, but the focus was really on basketball.
Yeah, but that just wasn't the point. And I think it does a good job, just with cultural awareness and, sharing, like, this is something that not a lot of people do, but for the people who do it, it's very, very serious and solemn. And it shapes their whole lives. And I think that they did a wonderful job showing that. So
okay, what about you?
I'm gonna give it 7. Yeah, just under you. Now that I've watched it, I don't know that I'll watch it again.
Right.
But yeah, it was a good movie. Yeah. Just through and through, I appreciated it. I think they went, just because I like the Bible, I think that they stretched it a little bit too far with the story of the Maccabees. But again, that might just be because I don't know. Going to Catholic school through and through. I don't know, there was a girl who was half Jewish, in my class,
Right.
but like I really there's not a lot of Jewish people in Delaware where I grew up, and so it's just not something that was on my radar. So I just really appreciated having that insight. Again, beyond just 8 days of presents and dreidels and whatnot.
Mhm.
All
Okay,
right.
excellent. And next week we are actually taking the week off, so there won't be a new episode on the 25th. But after that, premiering on New Year's Day will be High School Musical,
Yeah.
and I
So
couldn't be more excited.
I I have seen that movie more times than I know. And I just can't wait to pick apart every single bit.
Yes. It's gonna be so nostalgic. I can think of, so many times I've watched High
So
School
many
Musical in my
times.
life.
I came across a video of what was it? The big dance that Ashley Tisdale does with her brother, like towards the
Bop
beginning.
to the top.
No, 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 no.
Oh.
The when they're auditioning. Anyway, we'll get to it, but I saw it on TikTok and I was like, oh, I like remember dancing to this with my cousin. So anyway, so
Too
that'll be really
funny.
good. All
Okay,
right,
so tell them where to
so
follow us, Cece.
yeah, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can watch us on YouTube. And you can also follow us by email or just get the podcast episodes at orgodecom.substack.com. All right. So I'm Cece Ciccone.
And I'm Kelsey Bowman.
And this is Go Big or Go Decom. We'll see you next time.